Good evening, my name is Chancellor Zabanda with the 7 p.m. news. Coming up in this edition, Parliament sitting suspended as staff goes on strike demanding 24% salary increment. We also hear what President Turika says on the strike. Mr. Malawi outraged with absence of access to information bill on the agenda for the current sitting of Parliament. Commotion at Kamuzu Central Hospital as another fake doctor is arrested. And in sports, Farm tips Bullets and KB to follow FIFA rules on the proposed Havenkacha loan deal. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. The third meeting of the 45th session of Parliament has been suspended a day after it started, following a strike by members of the National Assembly support staff. The workers who are demanding a 24% salary hike have rejected an 18% offer made by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Veronica Mwale went to see how the situation was at Parliament.
Dressed in red and black and some white, members of staff at the new Parliament building are striking for an increase in their salaries. They'll say they will not return to work unless their salaries is increased with over 24%. This has disrupted the discussions here as Parliament was meeting for a review of the budget in the last 6 months. And according to the president of the Parliamentary Staff Union, they will not return to work until their salaries are increased. He explains.
First and foremost, you should understand where we are coming from. It's been like 6 years. We've never had salary adjustment. That's one. Two, what we proposed in our conditions of service was on the higher side. And what the commission gave us was a modest adjustment. So we had to contend with the Parliamentary Service Commission, but at the end of the day, we resolved to take the 24%. Our colleagues in the public service got something like an average of 45%. If you go to university, what they were demanding was far much. And right now, what government has given us, like 18%, what is they are proposing? I think they're just next to 24%. So we're saying, because they are insisting that they'll give us this 18% and we still continue to negotiate. But you know, I think the negotiations themselves, we have had problems with government in terms of negotiating, because at times they could deny us audience.
There's no telling when staff members will be able to return to work, but for now, members of Parliament are forced to return to their homes or wherever they can stay until the staff members decide to resume work. For ZBS, I'm Veronica Mwale.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Richard Nsoya, says the strike by the parliamentary support staff is a major setback for the meeting of Parliament. He speaks with Jacqueline Shema.
The information that at Parliament on strike is correct. We did make an announcement yesterday, even in the chamber, to that effect, that we received a copy of the notice which went to the Minister of Labour and Human Capital Development that staff indicated to Parliament or to the Parliamentary Service Commission that they intend to go on an industrial strike, or they are withdrawing their labour because they are not satisfied with the way the government has responded to their demand for an increment.
What will be the way forward in terms of the meeting of Parliament, as we all know that Parliament resumed meeting yesterday, Monday?
Yeah, you see, meeting of Parliament has a lot of things. One, you have the audio, you have all the services that the staff offer, providing water, pens, anything. Even just recording of everything. And which means to me, as much as I might say that maybe the senior staff that I need to be in the chamber with would be available, but it will mean that Parliament cannot proceed because you need a lot more people than the most senior staff that would probably be there to support the meeting of Parliament. So we may have to maybe just verbally shout to the honourable members when they come and say we cannot proceed and continue with negotiations with government.
Honorable Speaker, you are the chairperson of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Maybe how are you planning to address this issue?
Well, the address is one way. It's talking to the government and talking to the striking staff on the other hand, and to get government to absorb the demands at the same time, trying to get the staff to understand the situation that government says it is in. So it is not an easy task, but that's what we endeavor as the Parliamentary Service Commission to be doing until we reach an agreement.
Meanwhile, the President, Peter Turika, has asked the workers at Parliament to pick up their tools and return to work, saying industrial strikes are better handled with work in progress. He said he has spoken with the Speaker of Parliament, who is also the chairperson of the Parliamentary Service Commission, to talk to the staff on the need for the workers to resume work.
Just had a long discussion with the Speaker. In fact, we have spoken twice today on this particular thing. As I understand it, that an offer was made to the people who decided to go on strike. The offer that stands on the table now is equivalent to the rest of the civil service. In other words, the clerk of Parliament, for example, will get exactly the same salary as a PS in the Ministry of Information or PS in the Ministry of Defense. And that's what I understand. And a driver at the National Assembly will get the same salary as a driver in the Ministry of Education or wherever in the government. This is consistent with our policy of equal pay for equal work. So the way I understand it, and my discussion with the Speaker, I think that the offer that has been made pretty much represents what we are trying to do, and also within the government's ability. So I hope that we'll be able to reach a solution to this. And I send a message to the Speaker that it would be a good idea to go back to work and then continue discussions. This is what happens in most countries. You declare industrial disagreement, then you go back to work and you try to reach an agreement, either through bilateral talks or through arbitrators and so forth. And I think that's the way it should be here. So I'm hoping that, they will go back to work and that, a discussion will be made. And I hope that an agreement in good faith will be arrived at. But I'm told that, that the offer that has been made, as I said earlier, will put them on a par with all other members of the civil service.
The Media Institute of Southern Africa, Malawi chapter, has urged President Turika to live up to his promise to ensure the Access to Information Bill is debated at the current Parliament sitting. Mr. Malawi chairperson Tom Kanje says his organization is shocked that the much-awaited bill is not on the agenda as earlier promised, reports Sibongile Ziambo.
In a statement signed by Mr. Chairperson Mr. Tom Kanje, the media fraternity wants President Peter Turika to ensure that Access to Information Bill is prepared for discussion and consideration in the current sitting of Parliament. Mr. Kanje said Mr. Malawi is shocked that the bill is not up for discussion when President Peter Turika himself promised that his government would support the bill. Mr. Malawi, through the press statement, further says the body finds government's failure to bring the bill in the current sitting of Parliament as a sign of laxity in the present administration, considering that President Peter Turika had repeatedly promised to enact the bill since he was sworn in as president in May last year. Mr. Kanje says Mr. Malawi is shocked why government is not giving back its promises it made to the media fraternity.
Access to information is very important in this country. So when 20 years can pass for the government to enact such an important bill, that means people are being denied their constitutional right. People are being denied access to information which they need for their own socio-economic development. We believe that time for excuses has gone. 20 years is a long time. And right now what we're expecting is for the bill to go into Parliament, to be discussed, and pass so that Malawians should be given their constitutional right to access to information.
Access to Information Bill was not tabled during the last August House due to what government called limited time to review the bill. This time around, the bill is missing on the list of items to be discussed in Parliament, a thing that has disappointed the media fraternity in the country. For ZBS, this is Sibongile Ziambo reporting.
You're watching the news on Zodiac. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. I am Chansim Lozabanda with the news on Zodiac. The top stories once again. Parliament sitting suspended as staff goes on strike demanding 24% salary increment. Miss Malawi outraged with absence of access to information bill on the agenda for the current sitting of Parliament. Commotion at Kamuzu Central Hospital as another fake doctor is arrested. And in sports, Farm tips Bullets and KB to follow FIFA rules on the proposed Having Kaja loan deal. There was commotion at Kamuzu Central Hospital in Lilongwe this afternoon after a man was arrested for allegedly impersonating a doctor. Lilongwe police spokesperson Kingsley Dandaula says guards arrested Horace Gogoda after he was found roaming around the hospital while putting on a doctor's coat and a stethoscope. Police say this is the second time the man has been arrested for masquerading as a doctor. And earlier in Blantyre, the magistrate court found Ongani Kumbukani Gandulu, commonly known as the Queen's Central Hospital fake doctor, guilty of impersonating a medical doctor. But Principal Resident Magistrate Innocent Nedi said he reserved his ruling for Wednesday. Speaking to Grace Kombe of Zodiac after the verdict, State Prosecutor Dingiswayo Mbepula said Kandulu deserves stiff punishment to deter others from committing similar offences. In mitigation, Kandulu pleaded for leniency, saying he is an orphan, a Malawi School Certificate of Education candidate, and that he takes care of his relatives and grandparents. The Malawi Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives says it will roll out its proposed cooperatives insurance company as soon as it gets an operational license. According to MUSCO President Dennis Kalekeni, the central bank is still examining the registration application submitted last year. MUSCO has partnered with a Kenyan-based company to establish the cooperatives insurance company with an initial capital base of 125 million kwacha.
We are glad that all the groundwork of putting in place this company in Malawi has been finalized. We've just made an application to Reserve Bank of Malawi for the licensing because it's dealing with microfinance issues, and therefore Reserve Bank of Malawi has to regulate. Once this license is out, we should be able to take off, because I think in terms of office establishments, that has already been done. They give us a checklist of requirements, documents that we are supposed to present to them, and I'm glad to indicate that all those have been fully presented. And I think they only have one or two things to do in terms of scrutinization, but we want to believe that by the end of this month, or worst, early next month, we should be able to get the licensing.
President Peter Turika has proposed a review of the country's laws on women empowerment to fully achieve the quest to have more women in decision-making positions. He was addressing journalists in Lilongwe on his last week's trip to the 24th summit of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Jacqueline Shema reports the president is mainly concerned on electoral laws that discourage women from taking part in polls.
The African Union Summit, which took place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia last week, dwelt much on women empowerment. Taking the podium for the first time as President of Malawi at the summit, President Mutharika underscored the importance of including women in decision-making processes. Addressing journalists at Kamuzu Palace in Lilongwe Tuesday afternoon, President Mutharika says his government is committed to ensuring that women empowerment is strengthened by, among others, reviewing the country's laws. He cited Uganda, which has laws that identify specific constituencies during an election for only women candidates to compete. He then said Malawi should emulate that example and have laws, especially on fielding more women during elections and in other decision-making positions.
We have gone down, for example, in parliamentary representation. We have gone down. During the campaign, if you remember, I was saying that I wanted 50%, 50-50 women in parliament. But for some reason, during the election, we went down to where we are now, which is 20-something%, 32%. Yeah, I don't know why. But we need to work hard. I was talking to people from Uganda. In Uganda, certain constituencies, in the primary, only women can compete. That means they are sure that there will be a woman MP in that constituency. In Rwanda, there was a similar situation, I understand, in some constituencies, women, but even people with disability, that are assigned constituencies, and those constituencies, only women or people with disability will vote.
At the summit, heads of state and government adopted the Agenda 2063 framework document, which outlines a vision that charts Africa's growth for the next 50 years. Some of the issues that were discussed at the summit were to do with peace and security in the region, human rights and employment. The summit was held under the theme Year of Women Empowerment and Development Towards Africa's Agenda 2063. For Zodiac, this is Jacqueline Shema reporting.
This is Zodiac. I am Chancellor Zabanda with the news. Shortly, we have world news, but now let's move on to the world of sports. Now, can you buy a player on temporary basis to help you in a continental assignment? This is the question Big Bullets are grappling with ahead of their CAF encounter. Bullets feels it needs more talented players that it must rope in Havenkacha of Kamuzu Barracks on loan basis. But how is that possible when the players doesn't want to stay longer at Bullets? Well, Football Association of Malawi has advised BB and KB to follow FIFA rules, which ironically bars a player from playing in 2 clubs in a season. But farm transfer matching system manager Casper Jangale told Mike Bango Bullets and KB can agree on this.
Indeed, I think Bullets has shown interest to get Havenkaja on loan from Kamuzu Barracks. He's still contracted to Kamuzu Barracks, and we are also here to understand, I think, the terms of that loan. But for your information, I think there are several kinds of loans which clubs and players can use. There's a season loan. There's also short-term loan. It varies from 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months to 6 months. So in this case, I think maybe the best way to advise Kamuzu Barracks and Bullets is for them to first and foremost to define the terms of that loan. But I think the confusion that is coming in, that Havenkaja will be featured in Bullets, I think under CAF as well as Kamuzu Barracks under Super League of Malawi. I think that one from the onset is not applicable. A player cannot feature for 2 teams at once. If he's loaned out, it means he ceases temporarily to belong to a particular club. So what they can do is for them to sit down and map a way forward on how best it can work for both teams. Because Havenkaja has been registered in the 2015 football season. So in one season, a player cannot feature for 2 teams at once, unless he's contracted to one particular club and is loaned out. Once he's loaned out, he cannot go back to his club and play unless that loan is revoked and changed.
As we speak now, should we say Kamuzu Barracks, the time they will loan Havenkaja to big players, he will play to big players, whether league games, cup games, including CAF Champions League?
Yeah, but on that one, I think it depends on how Kamuzu Barracks and Bullets look at it. I know Bullets are desperate for players at this particular point in time as they face Fumboni in CAF. And I know for Super League of Malawi, it will start sometime in April once everything finalizes. Maybe the concession that these 2 teams have is maybe by then anything would have happened in CAF competition. But to put the record straight, if Havenkaja is loaned to Bullets, they have to understand the terms of that loan and how loan agreements work out.
Across the borders, a new report shows that floods that have ravaged northern and central parts of Mozambique have killed 159 people and affected nearly 160,000. Details in this News 24 report.
Mozambique National Institute of Disaster Management spokesperson Rita Almeida says there are now 158,000 victims. Zambezia province, in the center of the country, is the worst affected, with 134 killed and 152,000 affected since mid-January. Heavy rains pounded the southern African country this weekend, raising fears of further flooding. Mozambique's deadliest floods were in 2000, when an estimated 800 people were killed. With 80% of Mozambique's population dependent on agriculture, 25% of the country's gross domestic product, the impact of the floods on the economy will likely be significant.
A female suicide bomber has blown up herself in the northern Nigeria's Gombe city minutes after President Goodluck Jonathan left a campaign rally there. Tadara Kalitzera with a BBC report.
Police and hospital sources said at least one person was killed and 18 others were wounded in the blast. Mr. Jonathan is standing for re-election on 14 February against former military ruler Muhammadu Buhari. Militant Islamist group Boko Haram has stepped up its attacks in the run-up to the contest. It has not commented on the blast. Explosions have also ripped through court buildings in 3 towns in oil-rich southern Nigeria in what police described as coordinated attacks.
You have been watching the news on Zodiac, the top stories. Parliament sitting suspended as staff goes on strike demanding 24% salary increment. President Turika has urged the workers to return to work. Mr. Malawi outraged with absence of access to information bill on the agenda for the current sitting of Parliament. Commotion at Kamuzu Central Hospital as another fake doctor is arrested. And in sports, Farm tips Bullets and KB to follow FIFA rules on the proposed Having Culture loan deal. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Chancellor Zabanda. Bye for now and good night.